Check. Hello and good evening, everybody. May I request all of you to settle down? On behalf of the Tollygunge Club, I extend a warm welcome to all of you here today for the annual Tolly Debate. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to the 4th Tolly Annual Debate. It's one of the more eagerly awaited events in the club's calendar. I also extend a very warm welcome to all our distinguished speakers who have taken their time off and come from various places, including from Kolkata. And of course, our moderator, Dr. Kunal Sarkar. Thank you again for giving your valuable time. Please join your hands together in extending them a warm welcome. We meet at a time when public discourse is increasingly under scrutiny. Recent events have reminded us of the extraordinary power of social media to shape narratives, opinions, amplify voices, and bring changes, whichever side of the fence you're on. Perhaps when we started this out, it was well debated. There's a lot of debate which goes on to decide what's the topic, and then we arrive at the topic. But now we are at a moment where actually we were wondering whether it's the right topic, but I think the recent events have borne out that we have chosen the right topic. We debate through ideas, reasons, evidence, and respectful disagreement in our debates here. In a world where everyone has a platform, what we need most is more voices. Is not more voices, but better conversations. I'm sure our speakers today will convince us with the strength of their arguments. And also, I suppose, they'll be trending tomorrow, hopefully all for the right reasons. Our sincere thanks to the Telegraph, which is our exclusive media partner, and to ITC Limited, our Vice President, Mr. Sumant Bhargavan, and Mr. Nalin Kaushik. They always support this event. Thank you again. Our thanks to all the members and the guests for joining us this evening. It is my privilege to invite Mr. Songit Bagrodia, our President, to formally welcome everyone and open the event. Thank you and enjoy the evening.
Good evening, distinguished guests, respected speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to the 4th Tolly Annual Debate, one of the most intellectual stimulating event on our club's annual calendar. For over 130 years, Tollygunge Club has been more than just a sporting and social institution. It has been a place where people have come together not only to enjoy sports and fellowship, but also to exchange ideas, engage in meaningful conversation, and celebrate the value of free thought. The Tolly Debate has become an important part of that tradition. This evening's motion could not be more relevant. In this digital age, self-promotion is no longer an act of vanity, it is a matter of survival. Whether in business, public life, or even our personal lives, visibility has become a form of currency. Today, we all have a platform. The question is, has self-promotion become an essential life skill, or have we begun to mistake visibility for value? There are compelling arguments on both sides, and I'm certain our distinguished speakers will challenge our assumptions, provoke thoughtful reflection, and perhaps even persuade us to see the issue differently. The true value of a debate lies not in proving one side right or wrong. It lies in questioning our own assumptions, listening with an open mind, and appreciating the strength of ideas expressed with conviction and respect. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Telegraph, our exclusive media partner, and ITC, our associate sponsors, for their continuous support of this event. Their partnership has helped us maintain and grow this annual debate. My compliments to our moderator, our speakers, and the library subcommittee, the club management, and every member of our staff who has given their effort and hard work to make this evening possible. Finally, to our audience, I encourage you to listen carefully, enjoy the exchange of ideas, and above all, keep an open mind. After all, the best debates do not simply strengthen our arguments, they often make us rethink them. With those words, it is my privilege to declare the 4th Tolly Annual Debate open. I wish our speakers all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now invite Dr. Vishnupriya Sengupta, the chairperson of the club's library subcommittee, to take forward the proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brigadier and Mr. Bagrodia. Good evening, and once again, a very warm welcome to all of you. While our president and the CEO have briefly presented the lay of the digital land, let me share why we zeroed in on this topic. In fact, it couldn't perhaps be a better time to talk about this and debate on this. For generations, humility was considered a virtue, and the more humble of the lot rarely spoke about their achievements. But now the digital age has changed many rules, and perhaps the most important one is this: if you do not tell your story online, it may never be heard at all, and you may cease to become irrelevant. Cease to become relevant. Okay, so all of you are listening. In an era driven by social media, personal branding, digital networks, and constant information overload, the question before us is whether staying silent comes at a cost, whether we can afford not to promote ourselves, our ideas and talent on social media and still hope to be successful. And at the same time, it is important to ask, where do we draw the line between visibility and vanity, between authentic self-advocacy and self-obsession? Does the pressure to constantly market ourselves enhance opportunity, or does it create a culture where perception matters more than substance? So these are the issues which will be examined today, issues that not only touch and impact us, they touch and impact us in more ways than one. But before we launch into the debate, a sincere word of thanks once again to the Telegraph, the exclusive print media partner of the Tolly Annual Debate, a newspaper I have personally been associated with for several years. And our sincere thanks are also due to ITC Limited for partnering with Tolly as associate sponsor. Their valued association has helped us sustain and elevate the stature of the Tolly Annual Debate. And we look forward to strengthening our collaboration in the days ahead. And now, finally, for the moment we have all been waiting for. We are privileged to have amongst us Dr. Kunal Sarkar as the moderator. A cardiac surgeon attached to Manipal Hospitals and founder trustee Calcutta Debating Circle, Dr. Sarkar has been at the heart, and I mean that as a pun, at the heart of this annual debate for the past few years as our unfailing moderator. He is also a public speaker, author of The Sickness of Health, and a digital entrepreneur who spearheads Asklepia Health, one of the most popular Bangla digital health platforms. Thank you so much, Kunalda, for your support. And now, I would also like to extend our heartfelt thanks and gratitude to our distinguished speakers who have taken time out of their busy schedules to be here to debate on this topic. They are all high achievers and have made a distinctive mark in their respective disciplines. Dr. Sarkar will introduce the speakers as they come up on stage, and I would request our President, Mr. Bagrodia, to please felicitate them. So we have with us, may I call upon Akash Banerjee, please? Ankita Mukherji. Mudar. Just wait. Ankita. No. Mudar Patherya. No, that's okay. Yes. Nilanjana S. Roy. Ramanjit Kaur. Riddhi Sen. Ruchir Joshi. I'm calling them out alphabetically just to be neutral. And last, but by no means least, Vrinda Grover. And with that, may I request all of you to just come up here so that we can take a group photograph before we start? We all go back, yes. As long as we don't all fall down. Yes.
Are we audible? It's on? Hello? Hello? Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Tollygunge Club, a wonderful audience, good evening. Start with a note of apology. It's me again. Right. Never mind. You bear with me for the rest of the evening. You see, I was absolutely sure that when Tollygunge Club offers its memberships and specially selects its members for the library subcommittee, they select people with learning, people with wisdom. But I think in this instance, in selecting a topic probably more than 2 months ahead, they have almost been prophetic. Because Bishnupriya gave us a very philosophical underlining of the topic, but in my mind, in the back of our sort of middle ear chambers, this could be the resonance coming out from the seat of Indian power as of today. Times change, relevance is dynamic, and the topic this evening is as poignant, as pointed as ever. And make no mistake, these people may have knelt down for the photograph, but none of them will kneel down as far as their stance and the position they take on today's debate is concerned. When we were young, we were taught that for us to survive, we need about 360 liters of oxygen in 24 hours. We were also taught that it requires 7,000 liters of blood to circulate around the human system. But we were not taught that we need an obligatory consumption of 1 gigabyte of data per day. And we were not taught that along with a pulse rate of 72 and a respiratory rate around 24, you need a scrolling time of 3.5 hours, without which you would be biologically and intellectually imperfect. Strange are the times. And in this debate, as simple as ever, we have a proposition, and make no surprise, even though we are in West Bengal in 2026, we do have an opposition. And before we count, at the start of the event, they are evenly managed. And unless there is some flow crossing, which will not surprise us at all, again, I cannot, because I was suggesting that we have a watertight barrier down the middle, considering the recent trends of the Bengali political intellect. But never mind, we have utmost faith in the integrity of the people who are present in the Tolly Club this evening. So, after a lot of thinking, barbed wire fence and watertight compartments were done away with. So this debate, for the start, will have 4 members each in the opposition and proposition. They will all speak. And in the beginning, Bishnupriya has been very generous. You speak for all of 10 minutes, 8 plus 2. And provided at the end of it, both the audience and the timekeeper is awake, we move on to the next speaker. We move on to the next speaker. And thereafter, we have absolute confidence that all of you will be a little bit more relevant than the political speeches coming out of late, and hence you will have another 2 minutes to refute one another. After the refutation, depending upon our both how many neurons are working at the end of about 120 minutes, and our blood sugar levels combined, we will see that if we have enough enthusiasm to take some interaction from the floor, personally would be very happy to do so, and we will have a little bit of summing up, because that is not, sometimes if you still think at the 120 minutes you have not understood the debate, I don't think 6 minutes will make a lot of difference, but that is an old Victorian habit, and it still goes on. But that is where we are. And we have somebody who, after a lot of scrutiny, we have tested all his identification possible, starting from SIR to Aadhaar card. And the one who was found to be absolutely incorruptible is the young man sat next to me by the name of Pranab. Pranab, you come with the highest recommendations, and Pranab is going to help me with the timekeeping. Okay? And if you take any great offense to anything that has been said, I only had one request at the beginning of the debate, that eggs were not to be allowed, whether in the boiled or in the half-boiled version. So I think we can be reasonably confident that eggs, whether raw, half-boiled or full-boiled, are not a part of the debating armamentarium this evening. I never knew Bengalis had such great aim, If you watch these videos, I don't know how, nobody is missing nowadays. From 20 feet, 25 feet, 30 feet, everybody is hitting the target bang on. And yet, we have almost no Bengalis representing us either in dart, shot put, or javelin for the last 20 minutes. But there you go, the missed opportunities of the Bengali can be a part of another debate in the near future. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we begin the debate. Again, calm down. Don't get too excited. Don't get too politically involved, because at least in this part of the world, political polarization counts for nothing, right? So calm down, have a good evening, enjoy yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, the Tolly Debate 2026 goes to say that in this digital age, self-promotion is no longer an act of vanity, it is a matter of survival. And I think this is something that will be taken head-on by both the proposition and the opposition. And for the motion, we have openings. The proposition is being opened by somebody whom we used to see in great admiration and rapt attention on the television screens not so long ago. She used to represent a channel who not only changed owners, but radically changed opinion. And these days, the so-called mainstream television channel has become like Olympic gymnastics, because you have one anchor who for 1 hour has given you an extremely inspiring left-of-center view, and the other one will come in the next 1 hour and make you believe even sunrise and sunset is a part of conspiracy, right? But other than that, they've been largely consistent, they keep to time, but we do not expect any of these inconsistencies from somebody who is very much a media person, a media educator, and a media trainer. And with a lot of hope, I think we could have not expected a better opening for the Tolly Debate than to request Ankita Mukherji. Ankita, floor is yours.
The Bharatiya Janata Party's own Instagram handle had. In just a few weeks, it crossed 22 million followers, and it forced the most image-conscious government this country has ever seen onto the back foot. I argue that it's the personal visibility of an Abhijit Dipke, a Neha Bora, that's the young JNU student activist who went on hunger strike on stage. She lost about a third of her body weight. A Saurav Das, again a young man, no political background, not a seasoned campaigner. But all of these people made themselves front and center of these protests. They were the faces that brought together a movement because they were such excellent communicators, because they understood that visibility was literally survival, that visibility was power. Ladies and gentlemen, I think what we have in front of us is honestly an extraordinary moment and an extraordinary generation. This is a generation that's practically been born with a cell phone in one hand and a ring light in the other. They are used to training it upon themselves. They're used to making themselves the story. And they did that, and how? They were funny, they were creative, they were fiercely outspoken and dangerous to those who would prefer that our citizens remain politely invisible. If the Cockroach Janata Party movement grabbed as many eyeballs as it did, it was because these people knew how to promote a cause by promoting themselves. Without their faces, their Instagram feeds, their live streams, their posters, their reels, their funny slogans, their witticisms, would we have had a protest that became a national reckoning? I think not. We've had many other protests before this. This was different. I'll also argue that the Cockroach Janata Party protests became a watershed moment for journalists and reporters and their professional survival. And why do I say that? The ones who mattered were, I think we can all argue, not in the studios, not talking about the foreign hand or external funding or instigators. They were the ones who were in Jantar Mantar. They were the ones who made themselves part of the story. The ones who promoted their own YouTube channels, because that's where the good journalists are now. And they have had to make themselves visible by promoting themselves. That's not narcissism, that's not vanity. That's professional survival. Because where would they go? Mainstream media? I think not. When you hear of people talking about these protests, they'll talk about young Priyanshi's coverage, Vedanta's live reporting from Jantar Mantar, Saurabh Shukla talking to protesters and getting their voices across. They were covering those protests long before the studios decided to even sit up and take notice. It was because those voices came to us. It was because their subscribers grew, because they were there, making themselves visible, surviving, that this Cockroach Janata Party also caught on the way it did. I spent 20 years in television news when old school journalism dictated that, the journalist had to disappear behind the story. The story was the star, the network was the brand. All those truisms have been turned on their head. More than ever before now, audiences trust the person, the face, not the logo. And that's why a Deshbhakt sitting across the aisle from me has 6.8 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. He'll probably correct me and say it's actually more. He adds 20,000 new subscribers every single week. A mainstream media channel would honestly be lucky if they could clock those numbers. Is it because Akash Banerjee is keeping a low profile? I think not. He's saying, watch me, not because he's a narcissist, but because what he says deserves our attention. But I don't really need to look at Delhi or Mumbai or professionals there. This city has witnessed the same truth, its own protests exactly 2 years ago, another August evening. A young sociology professional named Rimjim Sinha put up a Facebook post. She said, 3 words in Bangla, Mera raat dokhul karo, reclaim the night. And she made herself the center of those protests. One post, one voice, refusing to stay silent. And an entire city found its conscience. Lakhs poured out onto the streets. And, the rest, as they say, is history. I'm sure you've all noticed how the trolls come for these movements. They'll dismiss these protesters as narcissists, as content creators, just out to grab a few eyeballs, increase their support base. But visibility is power, and power always frightens those who prefer that you stay invisible. My friends across the aisle will probably want you to picture self-promotion as that air-headed influencer pouting into a selfie, or the politician, the crass politician who loves his own image, is so fond of his own voice that he'll subject you to it all the time. Don't let them get away with that caricature. Think of the doctor who educates patients online, who reaches more people with one health communication video than he would probably in a lifetime of clinic hours. I think we have such a doctor right here on stage with us. The lawyer who explains the Constitution or the rights of a citizen on YouTube. the entrepreneur who builds the community before she builds a company, the artist who finds an audience on Instagram before an art gallery or indeed a stage throws that artist a bone. These are certainly all acts of self-promotion, but would we call it vanity? I think not. I would call it promoting expertise, bringing the talent into the room. Let's just stop treating self-promotion as a moral failing. The truth, in fact, is exactly the opposite. The real privilege today is not having to be seen. For everyone else, the student, the journalist, the activist, the entrepreneur, self-promotion is no longer optional. It's not vanity. It is quite literally the job. Thank you.
Brilliant opening, Ankita, brilliant opening. It used to be said that in the year 2014, a certain government was elected over WhatsApp when WhatsApp had something like 4 crore subscribers in India. I think currently it stands at around little less than 60 crores. And it is also said that a certain government may be brought down by Instagram. My problem is I keep on forgetting which government it is. Right. You have been very generous, very focused in your take on the Cockroach Janata Party. But somebody like you, Ankita, you must give credit where it is due. You haven't given the copyright credit to the Chief Justice of India, Supreme Court. And look how generous, with somebody like Vrinda sitting over here. If the man claimed 10 paisa per hit, even Desh Bhakt and everybody would have been undone. So nobody knows, who coined the term Beatles, but at least you know who coined the term cockroach. So it was India's copyright moment, and somehow, like many hits and misses in Indian public life, we seem to have missed it. Ladies and gentlemen, there is somebody amongst us who claims that he breathes Calcutta. He claims he walks Calcutta. He claims he thinks of Calcutta. And he is a man, being a media person, being an analyst, being a communicator, he takes the time out, goes around the city, identifies the dark, derelict buildings of Kolkata, and when he lights them up, all of us just stare at those lit up monuments of Kolkata in great amazement. And a man who's been doing all this silently but brilliantly is our next speaker to the podium, Mudar Patherya. Mudar, thanks.
Kunal, I like the word that you use, silently working for the city. That word silently is so important. Otherwise, I would have been on every Instagram post, every WhatsApp viral, and claim that I'm probably more invested and perhaps more competent than some people who actually work from the other side of the river. जो दिखता है, वो बिकता है. That's exactly what they're trying to say. मेरा अर्ज ये है, जो नहीं दिखता है, वो ज़्यादा बिकता है. I go back decades. Oh, no, sorry, not decades. Half a decade. There used to be a person, a cricketer, standing behind the stumps, and the only visible public comment that he would make is, shabash, shabash. That man, when he retired, there was no press conference. He didn't have a farewell test match. He didn't announce it beforehand. All he said, in fact, what he did, he borrowed the words from a shair, a poet, Sahir Ludhianvi, who had died in 1980. And all he said is, मैं पल दो पल का शायर हूँ, पल दो पर मेरी कहानी. 15 words, 40 seconds. And that's how possibly India's greatest test captain, after winning 3 ICC tournaments, exited. He didn't make a show of it. He just disappeared. He made himself scarce. He didn't over-emphasize and over-message. Now you would say, okay, this is done. Some people are like that. शादी भी की उसने देहरादून में, farm house के बाहर, 50 or 60 people invited. That would have been not more than 2 rows of 3 rows of the audience sitting here. The media was invited, but kept 1 kilometer away from the Shadi Ka Mandap. And then see what happens. You would say, so what? And I'll explain to you, so what. Last year, he still, at the age of 43, was a part of the Chennai Super Kings team. Played 13 games. Highest score, 30 not out. Total score, total aggregated score, 196. He should have been dropped. They didn't drop him, he didn't retire. He moved into the current season. He had a calf injury. He didn't play a single match. They didn't drop him. At the end of all the matches, when the season was over, he took a lap around the ground and the entire crowd, Chepauk, waited for him and applauded him. You know, there is a theory that you need to over-message, you need to overpopulate, you need to be there in people's faces and then announce that you may have played your last game. But see what is happening. By the sheer intelligent and prudent use of scarcity, this man is not only a part of the CSK team, doesn't play a single game, gets more applause than anybody else. The sponsors insist that even though he has not scored a single run for CSK in the last season, he must be a part of the frame. And effectively, he's done something that most people have not even realized. He's decoupled his brand from playing to non-playing. He's detached himself from how many runs are scored to just being a part of the frame. And he is possibly the most powerful asset on the CSK franchise today, Mahendra Singh Dhoni. This is how you conduct yourself in an age when everybody has access to your email or your whereabouts. And what happens in his case? Rahul Dravid once said, Mahi bhaiya accessible nahi honge. Phone number nahi hai mere paas. If you want to reach out to Mahendra Singh Dhoni, you've got to go to your post office and send a letter saying Mahendra Singh Dhoni, Ranchi. That's the only way to reach out to him. And see how he has created a brand. That you would say is, ये तो rarity case है, ये हर बार नहीं होता है. So I'll give you another instance. Sumo, all you guys played tennis. Our God, for the little tennis that I played, is not the 39-year-old who's still playing, is not the 38-year-old who retired, is not the 41-year-old who everybody considers to be the greatest of all time. For us, it happens to be a man who retired at the age of 26 in the year 1981, and his name is Bjorn Borg. For all of you who lived through the 70s, there's only one image that you will carry of tennis, and that is a man, a Nordic individual with a beard, sinking to the ground on a grass court and just looking up to the heavens. Why? Because the man made himself scarce. Do you know why he retired? Not because he had an injury. He said, I have had too much. There's too much of camera in my face. I want to get away. He didn't use the word vanity. Actually, and interestingly, the word that he used was sanity. He said, I have to get away to keep myself alive. If he had been living today, there is a possibility that Borg would have retired at 23. At 26, after 90, do you know the biggest opposition to his retirement didn't come from the sponsors? It came from the number 2, John McEnroe. He said, it's going to be no fun anymore. But that man protected himself and walked away. Even today, if there's anything on Borg on Netflix, I will watch it first. Not if it's on Federer, not immediately. Borg is number 1. Because Borg understood that sanity is important, and in doing so, made himself scarce. Look around today. The biggest painter of, or I would say the most mystical painter of our times is someone whose face you haven't seen. Is someone whose full name, real name, you don't even know. He made a film on himself and came in a hoodie so that nobody could see his face. His name is Banksy. Nobody even knows who he is. And this is how people utilize scarcity as a currency. I won't say, if you look at it from a limited, self-centered perspective, to raise his bhav. That's not the idea, to retain his sanity. Something has happened, something has shifted in the world in the last 2 decades. There's been an assault on our senses from the social media. There are individuals who want to protect their sanity and ensure that when they go into old age, they are as young as ever. This man is doing exactly that. Take another instance from nearer home. This man last year announced that he would not do commercial singing anymore. He would relocate from Bombay and go to a place called Murshidabad or Jiaganj. He wouldn't give interviews. There's no feed that you will see, oh my God, he said this last evening. He doesn't give interviews. He has approximately 12.5 million followers on the social media. And he's done only 154 posts. And you are telling me that he has to be in the newspapers every day. Dhoni has 50 million followers. That's more than the population of a number of countries in the world. And he's done only 112 posts. So what am I saying? Somewhere in all this, there is a mystical value. There's something called sanity and there's something called vanity. And if you work on the sense of mystique, mystique is not subject to an algorithm. Everything else is measurable, enumeratable. Mystique is not. And mystique does very interesting things over a period of time. Visibility gradually depreciates. Mystique compounds. Visibility creates followers. But mystique, it creates legends. And I come back to my opening statement. जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. So my submission is, जो दिखता है वो आज बिकता है. लेकिन जो नहीं दिखता वो जिंदगी भर, बरसों तक बिकता ही बिकता है.
Well said, Mudar, very well said. You really diverted the entire ethos of the debate so far. And I sincerely think, your words of wisdom regarding the value of scarcity, the mystic, these words of wisdom should reach in some of the retired sports personalities nearer home who've run out of products to advertise. Because from rubber slippers to wrought iron bars, from toffees to pan masala, people have actually advertised more products than were manufactured in this country. So I think your words of wisdom, Mudar, really, really needs to spread. Well spoken, dear friend. We now have with us, because we have a perspective which was completely placed in the current happenings in and around us, and then Mudar gave us a tone of philosophy, scarcity and sanity, which has given a widest possible dimension to this debate. And who better to invite to the podium now than a person from the world of performing arts, from the world of theatre, from the world of dance, who's also been involved in films. And I was looking up that couple of our films, one of them was called Match Fixing. I'm sure there'll be none of that this evening. And the other one was called Heaven on Earth. Now obviously that is not the situation today. It is a debate, and in this debate it has had the most panoramic opening possible. And right setting into the panoramic opening of this debate is Ramanjit Kaur. Ramanjit, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've been wondering who invited me here. How was I invited? I'm not a part of Tolly Club. I'm not a member. Some of you, very few, have seen my work physically. Some of you have heard about me. Most of the panel doesn't know about me. So was it social media that got me invited here? Here we are discussing, in this digital age, self-promotion is not an act of vanity, but a matter of survival. Oscar Wilde says, and this is for you especially, Mudar, you're my favorite, that's why. There is only one thing in the world worse than being talked about, and that is not being talked about. More than a century later, Oscar Wilde would almost have been predicting the digital age. Imagine this. You've spent more than 6 months researching about an idea. You've spent another 6 months creating it. Hours, nights, days, weeks, months gone into being together, sharing, crying, laughing, creating. And then comes the day when you're going to share it with the audience. The curtain opens up, and there are 12 people sitting in the audience. Because you did not have the money for big banners. You didn't have the money for newspaper ads. You're not a company who's been funded in a big way by the corporate or the government, especially recent governments. So what do? You go to social media and you tell people about your work and you make sure that they come in big numbers, just like today. So all these centuries, according to the opposition, we've been told, do good work and let the work speak for itself. I believe it too. Don't blow your own trumpet. Don't talk about your achievements. If you're really good, people will find you. Wonderful advice, perhaps for 1986. But this is 2026. Millions of voices are competing for our attention every second, so I have begun to ask myself, if my work speaks for itself, but nobody hears it, has it really spoken? The question before us today is no longer merely, is it dignified to promote myself? The question is, can I afford not to? And I stand firmly for the motion that in this digital age, self-promotion is not an act of vanity. It is a matter of survival. The microphone has been democratized. The digital age has done something extraordinary. It has democratized the microphone in a way where a handful of people earlier decided who deserved visibility. The editor decided, the critic decided, the television channel decided, the gallery decided, the publisher decided, the producer decided. Today, the musician, the artist, the entrepreneur, the teacher, the craftsperson can say, I don't have to wait for you to discover me. I can introduce myself. I can introduce my work. We've become our own publishers, broadcasters, and increasingly our own archivists. That is not merely promotion. It is ownership of one's narrative. It's taking agency of your own work and putting it across the way you would like it to be seen by millions of people. And of course, my colleague here talked about the power that Cockroach Janata Party showed about social media. From a small meme, they became a movement. What began as an irreverent, satirical online movement struck a chord with young Indians. A deliberately absurd name, satire memes, digital irreverence, easy to dismiss as another internet phenomena, except people didn't merely watch. They shared, they responded, they gathered. The online mobilization spilled onto the streets. Tens of thousands of students protested in Delhi over examination paper leaks and accountability, and they would have not been able to gather had all the news not carried itself in seconds through social media. The movement grew powerful enough to force political attention and government action. From meme to movement, whether one agrees with its politics or not, is irrelevant to our argument here. What matters is this: a voice that travels can become a community that gathers can become a movement, and a movement can challenge power. Sometimes we promote the self in order to promote something much larger than the self, a cause, an idea, a community, even a revolution. Let me take you back to a little bit more sad movement called Me Too. I had a revolution. We all had a revolution happening in front of us. All the women who had not spoken of all the atrocities that had happened against them, they were suddenly speaking. And I had my writer friends, my author friends, my artist friends, directors coming to me very strongly. How can you speak so strongly about Me Too? Look at what has happened to me. Look at she has, given a wrong claim about me. I said, well, there must be something there. So don't come back to me that something is wrong. But this would not have happened if we did not have social media, if we were not collected globally every second. Only the notice board has changed. And let's not pretend promotion was invented by Instagram or Facebook. Artists have always promoted their work. Posters outside theaters, handbills, press conferences, and the bigger banners on the roads. And this time only that nobody looked at a theater poster and cried, oh, what a narcissist. But put the same poster on Instagram and suddenly, too much self-promotion she does. Gandhi, let's talk about him, understood the power of visibility long before social media. The Dandi March was not merely about making salt. It was an act meant to be witnessed. People walked, newspapers reported, photographs traveled. The act became the message. Yesterday it was the newspaper, then radio, then television. All the players that Mudar talked about were actually televised and became too visible before they went into scarcity. Today it is the phone in our hands, only the notice board has changed. Now that I have the ring, I'm rushing to a very interesting point here. That before I finish, I must thank someone for proving my case, and that's Mr. Mudar Patherya, who happens to be sitting on the other side of this debate. Mr. Patherya regularly posts about cleaning our city. He draws attention to what needs to be changing. People notice, people think, people act, but one particular post of his had a rather dramatic effect on me. And you are creating a movement through social media, and we thank you for that, Mudar. And this post was very strange, and even he doesn't know about it. He once wrote about looking at his wardrobe and realizing that he has too many t-shirts in the wardrobe, and he's not going to buy any more. I quietly read the post. I was so inspired that, a couple of my friends sitting here will vouch for it. I did not buy clothes for the next 2 years. So that's the power of social media, Mudar. We don't know how many we are influencing. So on behalf of Mudar, if creating a revolution is bad, then I plead guilty on his behalf. Thank you.
Well said, well spoken, Ramanjit. I've been telling Mudar for a very long time, if he has things to spare, he can always think of me. But I don't know why. Mudar floats it on the social media and doesn't send me a message. Mudar, Don't be mean for the next time. When you discussed the challenge of the artist, for the work of the artist to be seen, I think the city has lived through the challenge when the great Tagore struggled for all of 35 years for his songs to be listened to, for his works to be read. It was not till he was almost in his 36th year since the first song was written that Promotesh Bodua puts up a Rabindra Sangeet in a movie and Pankaj Mullik comes to the rescue of Rabindra Sangeet, that it becomes a part of Bengal's cultural oxygen that it is today. So Tagore without the Wi-Fi had to struggle quite a bit. And I think that has been the calling of the artist for a very long time. Friends, we have a person who once wrote a book, not very long ago, and the book was called The Black River. I don't think it was based in and around Kolkata, a little bit far away. The book dealt with crime. It dealt with the nuances of life. And people who've reviewed, read, and acclaimed this book claimed for its lyricism, for its insight into the dark, deep corners of human conflict, of human emotions. And I particularly appreciated one line of a book review, and that review read that this book puts the axe into the frozen river of human conscience. Probably it was a line borrowed from Franz Kafka, wasn't it? And the author happens to be within us, the author of Black River, Nilanjana S. Roy. Nilanjana, your time at the podium.
I would be so happy to live in the world that my wonderful friends and speakers from across the aisle have described to us, where we live in a digital world that is filled with harmony and brings about community, and where every act of self-promotion is actually a selfless act of kindness to each other. I don't think that's true, though. Thank you very much for mentioning Black River. I just want to say that that's the kind of book that you can't write unless you go out and have 100 conversations or 1,000, and you can't do those unless people are generous to you offline in the non-digital world. Let's get a few fundas straight, though. In this digital age, wonderful, what are we talking about here? I grew up, and this is really going to date me, but who cares? I grew up in the time of blogs, and Yahoo, and chat rooms, and GeoCities, and we had something called Stumble Upon, which was a kind of search engine where you could walk in and just find something miraculous online in this very non-corporate world that you didn't even know that you were looking for. And our literary blog world, most of us went on to be writers, Rahul Bhatia, Laila Lalami. We weren't doing it for the likes because you were so happy when you were read by 5 readers, and one of them was not your mother, aunts, and cousins. You were doing it, though, for a kind of sense of community. You were doing it to reach out. You were doing it to see whether halfway across the world in America, and in between America and India and Morocco, there might be somebody else who loved reading. We've moved from there, and this is the digital age that we are talking about, into this wonderful commons. We've been talking about all of this: Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. They are owned by corporates who want you to think that you have to self-promote. They want you to think that you must monetize life, that you must be a brand, not an individual, that you must outsource all your creativity to Insta. And they have very good reasons for wanting you to think that. Elon Musk, he owns Twitter, which was formerly known as Twitter, now X. He has a net worth of 800 billion. So every time we are spending, those hours on social media, you're contributing to his bottom line. And Mark Zuckerberg's Meta, that's 200 billion, including Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Zhang Yiming, he is at a net worth of 92 billion. He's the guy who came up with TikTok. Corporate life would really want us to believe that we have to stay online, that it's the only way to connect, that it's the only essential way in which we can be human and reach out to one another. All right. I just want you to hold that thought in your head that when we are talking about the digital world, we are now talking about a scenario that is by and large owned. The majority of it is owned by a handful of corporations and some extremely rich billionaires who really don't care about your protests so long as if they're not contributing to your bottom line. That's why the CJP protest, that works. For them, though, the farmers' protest might be invisible. The Ken Betwa protest, which was happening at the same time, that isn't on social media, that isn't hailed, and that is important. Hasteo Arand, which is an entire forest, an old, old forest that we can't replace, that is being cut down for corporate greed. That is also unsocial mediable, which is a term that I just made up, but it's going to be in the dictionary soon. Okay. Self-promotion, you can't get away from this, you know. A lot of what happens on social media that we love and that we respond to is not actually self-promotion. That is sharing. That is what we do offline as well. And we translate it into terms online. We go there, and sometimes when you hit that heart and you give a like, you're just saying, I'm so sorry, you know, that this happened to you. Or you're saying, I love what you've posted. It makes me want to go to the same place. That part of it doesn't come from vanity, but unfortunately, I think the most of what you are told to do, whether you're an author or in the creative fields or politicians or whatever, that does come from the darker side of social media. You're told that you can't make it. You have to be a brand. I have never once in my life woken up in the morning thinking, I must be the best brand that I can possibly be today, you know? I have never woken up in my life thinking that I must go out and do 3 acts of self-promotion, though I have often thought that I must cuddle a cat who is asking to be cuddled, or write the thing that I was putting off, or just go out and take a walk. I don't think I want to orate at you at this point of time, you know, or hit you with lectures and all of that. I just want to say that there is a reason why, despite the success of some of what we do in digital life, so much is also moving offline. When you speak to teenagers, increasingly you see that the ones who spend over 3 hours a day, and this is again, you know, part of several studies bear this out, they suffer more from depression and anxiety. Why? Because this digital commons that we've created is also seriously toxic. We have so often talked about the good side of it. You know, the Cockroach Janata Party can mobilize 1 million people. Dibke, he wasn't trying for visibility. He was trying for something rarer, which is connection and community. Neha Bora, nobody knew her until she was made famous through social media. But what she was doing out there when she spent weeks on hunger strike, that was not an act of self-promotion, that was an act of deep care for the republic of this country. When I was out there on the barricades, when I was out there watching the young people of this country in Delhi, standing at the barricades, taking tear gas, taking lattes, do you know what it was? It was a social media free zone. Yes, afterwards, people made their reels. At that time, the government had switched off every mode of communication. You had no WhatsApp. You were dependent, your safety was dependent, your life sometimes was dependent on the stranger beside you. And whether they said, you need to duck, the lathis are being aimed at your throat, your back, your head. You were dependent on each other in the best possible way. The reason why this movement became a movement is because it didn't stay online. It catalyzed something online, and then it moved offline. And offline is where the vulnerability is. Offline is where the bullets are real. Offline is where you can see also what happens when a 21-year-old who has come out hoping to talk to their country goes back with a broken skull and broken lips. Offline is also where the shopkeepers and the locals come in with packages of food and water to help out students and to help out the people who came from all over. In that sea of humanity, There were 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, and 30-year-olds with agonized eyes. We saw the reels, and we smiled also at the way that some of this can puncture the pretensions and the promises of this big digital age. You can be the highest in the land, you can have built your image on a fortune poured into advertising and all of that, and be taken down by a little song about a small monkey. The students were channeling something that I think the best of us know. Mohashweta Devi, one of the icons of the city, she went out and she talked to the Shantals. She spent time in the villages. Amartya Sen, most of his great economics work was also built on the back of going out there on a bicycle and seeing from himself what that was. When I think of what an act of vanity is, I also think of Annie Ernaux, the Nobel Prize laureate. Somebody asked her whether the Nobel had changed her life, and she said, yes, I'm very grateful for the Nobel. Before I became the recipient of the Nobel, I used to get up every morning and write every day. And now that I have received the Nobel, I get up every morning and I write every day. That impulse to create, that impulse to do things with your hands, to bring together the hand, the eye, the imagination, to speak to each other in the crowd, not just to post your status updates. Yes, you'll do that. But first you've been in the crowd. First you've been the writer sitting there in silence. First you've been the person who says, most of life is actually offline. That vanity, that's the one area where I had a small disagreement with the subject. I thought it was basically a reflection of our age of anxiety. And the only antidote for anxiety, another thing that becomes an internet meme often is Mary Oliver, the great poet, her quote. Tell me, what is it that you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? You don't get that many, you just get this one. But everyone knows that quote, at least everyone on Instagram knows that quote. If you remember what she said, I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields. Do all of that. Live a little more offline. Thank you.
Nilanjana, thank you. Thank you. Please, we sincerely appreciate your applause, but just keep it to tolerable levels, right? And Nilanjana, you was mentioning the vanity of the Nobel laureates, and they are a pretty cranky community, When in the year 2024, the Nobel Prize for Physics was given to Hopefield and Hinton, the world applauded. And naturally they would, but it was the first Nobel Prize that was been given out for the deep learning algorithm of what engulfs us today, artificial intelligence. And then their hell broke loose, because physicists do not consider AI to be physics, right? So such is the vanity among science, that who should get a Nobel Prize and for what is also a matter of great dispute. And you were referring to the corporate algorithms. You see, it is all down to one little thing, and that is called dopamine inside the brain. And there is a whole lot of pharmaceutical research going on. I think not in the very distant future, you are going to have an anti-social media pill, like the anti-smoking pill and the disulfiram for anti-alcohol. I think in the very near future, you are going to have an intellectual contraceptive coming out that is going to keep you off the social media. So we wait for that great intellectual discovery. On that note, you see, what happens when a Bengali becomes angry? When a Bengali becomes angry, the first person they look for is a buddhijivi, right? They are always out in the streets. And if it happens to be a theater personality, a well-spoken individual, and that too young, where is there is a pothole in the road. Where is Buddhijivi? Buddhijivi kothay? There is a dog run over in the Dalhousie crossing. Where is the Buddhijeevi? They are accountable. And some people who are not only acclaimed in their field of performing arts, in the field of theatre, in the field of film, in the field of dramatics, not only that, being awarded with the national prize of being one of the best young emerging actors, he not only carries a legacy of brilliant performance, but he carries with him the family legacy for clarity of vision and outspokenness. And may the legacy continue. We ask Riddhi to come on stage. Riddhi Sen.
Thank you, Kunalda, for this brilliant introduction. শুরুতেই বলি একটু বাংলাতে বলবো, হ্যাঁ, আফটার অল হোম টাউন। তো আমি কিন্তু যে কোনো মুহূর্তে সুইচ করে যেতে পারি, কারণ এটা এখন বদলের সময়, বুঝতেই পাচ্ছেন। এখন একটা দের ইজ এ টার্ম উইচ ইজ ইউজড, ভালো বিরোধী, এক্স্যাক্ট নামটা বললাম না। তো আমি যদি একটু বেগতিক হয়ে যায়, আমি ভালো বিরোধীরা আশা করি আমাকে নিয়ে নেবে। এখন তো ভালো বিরোধীদের নিয়ে নেওয়া হচ্ছে বলুন সমস্ত জায়গাতে। সুতরাং আই ট্রাই টু কিপ ইট নিউট্রাল, যাতে যে কোনো মুহূর্তে সুইচ করে যেতে পারি। এইটাই হচ্ছে এখন মোটো ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে সার্ভাইভ করার জন্য। But anyway, so survival, this point has been hammering me since the time I'm seeing this. So let me read it out once more. So in this digital age, self-promotion is no longer an act of vanity. It is a matter of survival. Okay. So now nobody has told us that what to do with the survival. So we survive, but how is that survival? So that is what I want to talk about. But very interestingly, the word survival for this quote, I think it has an impactful thing. It is truly not a vanity. We can see the busiest man of this country coming on Instagram lives at 12 a.m. at night and talking to his friends. So he's definitely looking for survival after the protests have hit the street. So it is definitely no longer a sense of vanity. It has become a mode of survival for the government. So, and very interestingly, you see, we have been talking about the CJP. The CJP has started the movement, and the youngsters, the Gen Z, apparently we label them that they're always on their social media. But they have turned to the streets, and all the uncle generation and auntie generation, with not disrespecting anybody over here, but they have turned to social media suddenly and started trolling them. Okay, so there's an interesting flip side. So I think the Gen Z is technically using social media less, and our parents' generation have been addicted to it. And that is the crazy discovery that for whom this survival is. I think the older generation is looking for a lot of validation with this new gadget and this new getaway that, okay, every day after watching, everybody wants to scream, the nation wants to know. So that has become gotten into our heads. We all want to scream that on social media, and all I see that all 40 above people, 50 above people, they're suddenly asking for accountability just on social media. You don't see them on the streets, you don't see them in protests, but they're suddenly, they have discovered trolling. And that is a newfound thing for the older generation. I don't see, and of course trolling is paid. And I empathize with the trollers who trolls me on social media regularly, because they get paid, yeah. Because at the end of the day, that is a form of living. They get paid to say, Buddhijeevi kothay. So I can't blame them, because there's a dearth of jobs in our country, in our state. So if you can, get some money out of using 2-3 words of slangs, so it's okay, I will lap it up. So very interestingly, what I want to talk about, that our debate today, whether social media is important or not important, it is only constricted to a certain class. So as belonging to the entertainment industry, I can speak, of course, as Ramanjit fantastically said, that of course social media has democratized this cultural gatekeeping which has been happening for ages. And especially all of you reside from Bengal and Kolkata, you know how snobbish Bengalis are. Amar Robindranath, Baba, Amar Feluda, Amar Manikda. So always it seems that, everybody has an opinion, everybody wants to dictate how art is made. And suddenly, somebody will pretend that Satyajit Ray came and told them in the years that, see, this is how a film should be made. Or maybe somebody, Sharodindu had came and said that, this is how my Bomkesh should be depicted. So Bengalis have been very snobbish here about this cultural gatekeeping, and social media has broken that barrier. And that is fantastic. That today we don't need to advertise in a very known mainstream newspaper and pay them a lot of money for a very small space. And we can just post about a on social media about a theater for the tickets, for the ticket information. I don't need to pay an already rich, corrupt media house for, my ticket sale. I don't have to rely on them. So social media is there to complete that. So all these are great. But what I want to talk about, that we are here, the listeners and the speakers, we all come from a very privileged position to talk whether social media is an integral part of our lives or it's not. So let's say if we move out of Tolly Club and we go to a lot of, our population boom is crazy, correct? So there's so much that so many people out there who really don't know how to earn because there are not enough job opportunities. And as Mudar said correctly, that Arijit Singh or an MS Dhoni can afford to stay out of social media. But everybody's not as lucky as Arijit Singh. It's a chance. Arijit Singh happens by chance. He is in a place, he became popular, of course, through his talent. But there are many talented people out there who are waiting for an opportunity. And everybody is not an Arijit Singh who achieved so many billions of followers. And now he's in a position to say that, okay, I can't. So let's talk about something very interesting. I'm sure all of us are addicted to social media, no matter what we say in this panel. It is like smoking is injurious to health. We say, hey, bhai, cigarette khasna. And then we just light up a cigarette and say, it's really bad, So the social media, same thing. So Facebook ta eto kharap hoye geche na. Ekta friend request esche. So we all do this, in certain ways. So I'm sure we all have come across the food bloggers of Kolkata. Correct? And there's every other food blogging video you will see on your page. And we, being so privileged and snobbish, that we troll them for their accents, we troll them that, oh, baba, dekhe cho awaaz choleche khabar niye bolar jonno. But we have not really thought about that it is a mode of survival for them. I'll give you a small example. I won't quote an Arijit Singh or MS Dhoni or legends. I want to talk about the street legends. I want to talk about Rajudar Parota. Okay. So Rajudar Parota, we all know Rajuda. And he is a Parota seller in Shialda. And he earns his living from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. by selling Parotas. And he's really popular after doing his regular vlogs, posting on social media that helps his sales of Parota. And then he has become a bit of a celebrity also. He's invited to social events to talk and to give speeches. And he's doing well. But you know what happened after the government changed? Just a few months back. So his stall got destroyed and he got beaten up very badly. And that video was uploaded on social media as well, that he's being beaten up because he was probably, ground supporter of the previous political party. But he got bashed up black and blue. But now the people, যাদেরকে এখন বলা হচ্ছে ভালো তৃণমূল, ভালো দুর্নীতি, তাদেরকে কিন্তু কেউ মারছে না, কিছুই করছে না, তাদেরকে কিন্তু সাদর আমন্ত্রণে স্টেজে ডেকে সুন্দর হ্যান্ডশেক করে মিটমাট করে নেওয়া হচ্ছে। কিন্তু মার খাচ্ছে রাজুদা, মার খাচ্ছে, people who are getting beaten up are those people for whom it is truly a matter of survival to subscribe to social media. Because this is in Pandora's box. The genie is out of the bottle. You can't do anything. We don't need explanation of social media, internet literacy. We are privileged. We have our phones. We know what is social media literacy and what is not. But there's a huge population out there who are literally surviving on the streets, doing vlogging on YouTube, and hopelessly, waiting that, if some monetization is going to, turn up. That is their daily, that is something that is truly survival. We can't talk about survival sitting here eating sandwiches and coffee and wearing good clothes. So these kind of debates I have suggested previously also, that the listeners, in due respect to all the listeners, we need to invite, we need to be hosts to those people who needs to hear these debates in a simplified form, whether the social media literacy is important, whether it's needed, how much of that is needed, because it is an uncharted territory still. I'm not blaming the parent generation or the younger generation, because we have not realized that when we have turned into products, because there's this series on Netflix you guys can watch called The Social Dilemma, where there's a nice quote where they have said that if you can't sell the product, you are the product. So I'm happy being the product, but now what has happened, that our grief, our anger, our primal instincts are the products for social media. And we have no other option. It's very easy to say that, okay, please cut off, please detach, go to social media detox. But who are doing the social media detox? Who has a lot of bank balance, man? So without the bank balance, these kind of words like social media detox and everything, these are vanity. This world has unfolded. Now elections are happening through social media. Donald Trump came into existence because of Cambridge Analytica, the company who got the Facebook data, and the elections were manipulated. And our government, we know that there has been so much social media manipulation and brainwashing that the electoral outcome is controlled by social media. So it's not such a simple debate anymore. You have no other option but to be on that device. It's very easy to say that how will, as an actor, I can talk about my craft, that okay, I'm practicing every day, but where is the platform? Where will I show it? Apart from the device, little device I have. So it is very easy to say go through a social media detox, or whether it's good for us, bad for us. All these can happen if the word privileged is associated to the speaker. But 80% of our population in our country are not privileged. They don't come to Tolly Club. They don't have memberships of Tolly Club to listen to these debates. So I would request that such debates, from now on should be opened to those people who are not privileged, who need social media literacy, who really needs to hear these debates. Thank you.
Thank you, Riddhi. Thank you. You've really brought out a very important facets of what you spoke. And about 5 times in your speech, you referred to the being privileged. Absolutely true. Because in a country of 140 million, I think the cumulative social media presence had just crossed about 50. So about a good 40% of the country is still nowhere within the sweep of the social media as we know it today. But perhaps, we've referred to the CJP movement multiple number of times. But I think it gives you great hope in the present and future that hatred could not be digitized this time. Hatred could not be digitized. Conspiracy could not be digitized in a large scale. I couldn't agree with you more. There could not be a worse form of city sanitization than indiscriminate assault on the hawkers. I think that was not really welcome at all. So I think very important points you brought out, Riddhi, and I think may Buddhijibis like you thrive in the city for years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, there used to be a French mercenary almost 2 centuries back who had no compulsion of faith or belief, made a lot of money fighting for and giving service to whomever he could. And that French mercenary later on bequeathed a huge amount of sum, and that gave way to 2 schools in the country. And through one of these schools walks out a person who is with us today. I think some of you made the great mistake of going to the other school which is in this city. I did not. I confess, I did not. And coming out of an institution that was literally founded by a conviction-less mercenary is a person who should not definitely be called a political satirist. He's a critic. He gives his uncompromising views on whatever is happening around him. And you may envy his social media followers, but if you really need to envy one thing, you need to envy this man's courage of conviction at what he is putting out by way of content day after day after day. With great pleasure, Akash is with us, Akash Banerjee.
It's Lamatnia, Lucknow, not Kolkata. Just wanted to put that on record. It's a pleasure to be here. I heard a lot about Tolly. This is my first time here. My girlfriend in Hindu college was a regular here. She used to tell me a lot of tales about Tolly Club. And I apparently was so scared that I actually called the organizers and asked, am I allowed to wear a t-shirt? Because rules are rules. And I'm very surprised that rules haven't been followed in today's debate. Because the proposition would have been thrown out of this room had rules been followed. And I may request the audience to adhere and at least consider that rules were disrespected. It took them the third speaker of the proposition to even come to the definition of what we are debating here. Now, why am I going with this whole school business of, yeah, define nahi kiya? What is all this school business? We are all grown-up people in this room. But it is very, very important to define a debate, to set the parameters, which, by the way, is the proposition's prerogative, so that we know what are the constructs of the debate that we are discussing this whole argument on, which was not done. And I'll get to that and why it's important. But let me start with what the principal speaker, Ankita, spoke about. She talked about Riya in Mumbai, a moment in time when she put her hands on a police bus and it became a viral moment. It did. It was a very inspiring moment. I'm wearing her t-shirt. We designed it at Deshbhakt. But was she doing self-promotion, Ankita? Was it really self-promotion that a woman was doing in a moment of desperation trying to stop a van? Was it calculated, curated, thought about, then posted on social media? No. Every movement has these moments. And some lucky moments manage to get captured. And therefore, I come to the point is the debate wasn't defined. Because the topic today, is, if I'm not wrong, virality has given social media a lot more power. No. Social media has given reach to people. No. Virality has risen in digital age. No. Today's topic is in this digital age, very important word, is no longer, self-promotion is no longer an act of vanity. It took the third speaker to even talk about vanity. So that means that earlier, every bit of self-promotion was not vanity, and now it has become vanity. We need to debate into that. And it is a matter of survival. What is survival? What is desperation? We'll get to that also. Ankita talks about Abhijit Dipke. And again, why this is very important to define a topic. Abhijit Dipke sets up this whole chain motion, and the Cockroach Janata Party happens. Was Abhijit Dipke doing self-promotion? Or did he actually say, what if all the cockroaches came together? And therefore, the idea of the Cockroach Janata Party came into being. A common sentiment was tapped into. It wasn't Dipke Janata Party. It wasn't Dipke saying, oh, let's get ready with me. It wasn't Dipke saying that, oh, it is all about me. No, this whole movement actually wasn't about Dipke. It was about the cockroaches getting together. That is why it is very different. Does social media give power to the youth? Does social media give voice? Absolutely. But is this self-promotion? I think it's very, very important to call out what the proposition has been trying to do today. They have been trying to confuse reach. They have been trying to confuse social media power with self-promotion. Self-promotion is completely something absolutely different. And I think in the political sphere, we all know what self-promotion is. But again, I saw the whole debate revolve around politics, politics, politics. Nowhere is it saying, in this political age, in this digital political age, political self-promotion. No. This debate is much, much larger than politics. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem discussing politics. I do it for a living. But that's not the debate. Then Ankita was very kind to talk about journalists and how they are on YouTube and how Deshbhakt has 6.7 million followers and how she says that I say, come watch me. I don't. In 8 years, I haven't put out one promo. We haven't. Because that's how digital generation is different. If tomorrow I start putting out content saying, come, watch me, get ready for my bulletin, my core audience will say, Thu, I don't want to watch you. You know what works in today's digital age? And I think we have completely missed it in this whole argument and conversation and debate. And please reflect on this, is content. is intent, is honesty. And that has what has got us to, it's actually 10 million across 4 different platforms. But that is what works. It is not because I am saying is that I am number one. I am the most honest. Come watch me. That is what television used to do for so many years, and that is why television is where it is today. So self-promotion is a... Okay, do we need to define self-promotion? I don't think we need to define self-promotion, but we need to define what, and I actually looked it up. What is vanity? What are we talking about today? Vanity. Excessive pride or admiration of one's own appearance, abilities, achievements, or worth. Intense need for praise and validation from others. I'm not talking about somebody in specific here. A feeling that comes from fragile or shallow sense of true esteem. I hope this is being recorded? Okay, anyways. So, the second speaker, Ramanjit, talks about why was I invited here. And she credits it to social media. I honestly am telling you that we are again missing the fact of survival and solid content. Is her work good? Yes. Has social media amplified it? Yes. Has she gotten here because of self-promotion only? What is self-promotion? Self-promotion is the mindless pushing for one's own self-centered content and not really good work. And therefore, I come to a very important point. Please consider this, audience. The topic says, self-promotion is no longer an act of vanity. Was self-promotion happening before? Yes or no? Can we come to this conclusion that self-promotion was happening before or no? The point is very simple. In book reviews, in movie reviews, in NGO work, any and everyone has a right to put out their good work out there. And that used to happen, and that continues to happen now. This digital age, what is this digital age? What is this new technology? Of course, digital age has changed a lot of things. We are seeing the impact of AI. But when we are saying that self-promotion is no longer an act of vanity, we're talking about human value systems changing. I don't think so. There were self-promoting people before digital age who were mindlessly promoting themselves. They were paying money. I come from the generation when Times of India invented something called Pondi Times. I'm sorry, the city version. We as kids used to call it Pondi Times. But what was your supplement, your Kolkata Times, your Delhi Times? It was promotion. People who used to do a party and they used to pay money to put it on the front page. That was what promotion was all about. It used to happen then, it is happening now. Suddenly in this digital age, self-promotion is no longer an act of vanity. You had these vanity people before, you had these vanity people even now. Anyways, I really appreciate what Riddhi said, but Riddhi, with all due respect, who this hall should be opened and not open to, very honest, very great thought, but that's not really the purview of this debate. What we are discussing here at this point of time is, and you already talked about crossing over, I don't think we need, Asta dorkar nahi hamta hoye jabe. I think we'll manage the house here. But Modi, and that's a very good example, it really made me think. Modi coming at 12 o'clock at night and making that message. I think it was brilliant. Brilliant social media connect. But I would, however, put an asterisk. Was it really survival or was it desperation? My contention today is that when you have these actions being conducted and people trying to reach out, it is desperation. And please believe me, I do this for a living. When people are pushing themselves out so much, they are not letting their content speak, they are wanting their face, their life, their get ready with me. We've already talked about Dhoni as an example. Let's forget Dhoni because it has been pointed out, Arijit, Dhoni, these are rare examples. In social media, it's a known fact that you can get temporary virality. The debate does not say virality, it says survival. You can get temporary virality with this sort of self-promotion. Look how cool I am. Look, I'm smoking a cigar. Look, I am in Dubai. But we are talking about survival. we are talking about longevity, we are talking about solid work. What I just want you guys just to understand this is that in this digital age, we've suddenly stopped giving that worth to content. And it is a short thing. It'll last for a few days, but trust me, from somebody who's done this for 8 years on social media, what I have seen is still, even in today's self-centered world, if you have solid content, if you have solid intent, if you have honest intentions, ultimately in the long term, people stick with that only. I end with just reiterating what our side has already, I think, convinced you, but let me just say this. Big business, again, not Dhoni, huh? Big business, big inventors, big writers, big painters, anybody who is doing anything of substance is actually not self-promoting. They are letting their work speak. What I would like the last speaker to come out here and convince you that in today's day and age, hard work, content, perseverance, and good intent doesn't matter. What matters is self-promotion. And self-promotion is not putting your work out there. We've always put our work out there. It is good to put your work out there, but self-promotion is when you put yourself above the work that is being done. Many thanks.
Well done, Akash. Well done. You know, he took great pains to explain to people in Kolkata what self-promotion is. It really means he's been out of the city for some time. When you drive down from the city to the airport, just look at what you call it, the hoardings and banners right and left. The colors may have changed, the faces may have changed, but the bizarre and the macabre act of self-promotion goes on unhindered. Akash's conclusion will keep all of us thinking. I don't know how many more Deshbhakts he would have gathered today, but he has gathered a lot more Akash Bhakts. And Akash has set us thinking that where Modi is desperate to survive or is surviving in desperation. And I think that will really be the undertone of the debates to come, not only here, but outside as well. Friends, fate has brought somebody to the city. Today, on the 10th of August, 9th of August, when somebody, 2 years back, when the city was absolutely desperate and distraught, we still are, had thrown her weight behind whatever she could to help the people, to fight against a crime, an act of assault, to which even today we have very few answers. But what we did very well, whatever we excel in, and that is we confused the perspective out of her. She really didn't know who she was fighting for, what was the cause, and we made a great act of confusing and really spilling an opportunity which could have led us somewhere. And this person in recent times, on 25th of July, I think she puts a post where she says, precedence has been set. History will repeat itself. And the post went out on 25th of July. And standing by her post and stance this evening, we have Vrinda Grover.
Thank you, Dr. Sarkar, Tollygunge Club. I am a very late entrant on X. I joined after the CJP started their protest at Jantar Mantar. I have been lurking on X for many, many years, but I would never post. But I decided if I have to engage, if I have to converse, if I have to intervene, with the next generation and the generation after that, then I must now speak also on all platforms of social media. The act of self-promotion, a rather valiant act by Deshbhakt, which, as Dr. Sarkar said, he'll probably have a few more followers, hopefully, by tonight. That was a good act of self-promotion. We also learned the school he went to. Many of us went to convents. That's what you went to in those days, the privileged ones. And Renan Martin was taught there. There is a semicolon, since he insists on a textbook way of debating. There is a semicolon in this topic. But somewhere, Akash stops before the semicolon and then much later remembers there is a little latter part which has to be linked to the larger topic, because, you know, if you don't think at least an hour in advance and you think about the topic as you stroll into the room, you open your phone and take out the definition of self-promotion. Everybody who went to school and did debating knows this. Thank you. Now we come to linking the entire topic together. I'm afraid my friends on the other side, everything they have said, from the legends of superstars, by the way, they were all men, the superheroes that were mentioned. All those legends, their ages, everything smacks and betrays their age and their privilege. Who would be vain? A superhero, a tennis champion, a cricket test master, a film star, a dictator would be a narcissist, would be vain. Would a chota bandar be vain? I don't know. Can be cute, but vain, I don't know. Would a cockroach be vain? A creepy, crawly cockroach? Very unlikely. When you hear them and you read the topic of the debate, it tells you, as nowadays, we get to know the age of the person we are speaking with from the words they use and their choice of phrases and language. This is probably, and I belong to that, what is called baby boomers. This is a fresh, free crash course that all of us in Delhi have got from the protests. You should ask your grandchildren, children, they'll probably be able to help you. But the language being used on that side is so archaic that even baby boomers, which I would belong to, it's the age group of 62 onwards, would be hesitant to talk like this now. Only because you are actually not communicating with anybody or being relevant at all. Thousands of years ago, a human painted his name on the wall and self-promotion began. Caesar put his face on a coin. The first native Indian king to issue coins with rulers' heads were the Satavahanas in the 2nd century BC. Renaissance princes commissioned portraits of themselves, but somehow we've decided the great moral collapse of civilization happens when the person can have access and reach through a little device in their pocket. Governments have publicity departments, political parties have IT cells, corporations spend billions on advertising, and every election campaign in the history of democracy has understood one rather elementary proposition: visibility, visibility, and more visibility. So when the state or society tells the citizen that self-promotion is vulgar, while simultaneously spending public money telling the citizen what it has accomplished, forgive me, but it sounds that the moral distinction here is a bit elusive, if not hypocritical. It is called public communication when the government does it, branding when the corporation does it, campaigning when a politician does it, and vanity when the ordinary person does it, particularly the youth. Is it ego? Perhaps. Is it ambition? Certainly. But is it vanity? Is it vanity when an ordinary citizen takes to the internet because nobody in authority will listen? Ramanjit has referred to this. Is it vanity when women launch a Me Too campaign to call out the sexual predators who neither law nor society will hold accountable? Self-promotion, like most social phenomenon, is gendered. Women and girls have culturally been taught to be apologetic about their achievements. Are we then confusing self-promotion with narcissism? Assertion with promotion, let your work speak for you, is a doomed career strategy. Anonymity is fatal. Housework and caregiving, work that women have historically performed, is invisibilized and unacknowledged, hence disrespected and not valued. Housework that keeps the wheels moving of society. Unemployment today ranges in our society. 57% of graduate youths in India are today unemployed. The precarity and uncertainty of global markets due to multiple events is well known. In the digital age, self-promotion is no longer about feeding your ego, it is about feeding your stomach. It is a critical requirement of professional survival. When you treat your online presence as a vanity project, you miss the reality of how modern hiring, networking, and business work. If you do not actively publish your skills, expertise, and values, search engines will default to outdated or irrelevant data, effectively making you invisible or misunderstood. Social media platforms today, as per Goldman Sachs, is a more than 200 billion industry. Content creation is a primary source of income for many, and these many can come from across classes, including those who are not privileged. Cyber vetting today is an integral part of hiring. Surveys suggest that 57% employers are less likely to interview a candidate they can't find online. Given these dynamics, what should you do? So you self-promote not because you believe that you are the center of the universe, but because you should not refuse to leave your professional record blank and allow an algorithm to set it or edit it or distort it. Dipke has been spoken about, but Akash mentioned, well, Dipke was not doing self-promotion. Very soon, after calling for the cockroaches to unite, which was the first satirical comment on Instagram, the cockroaches united and formed a party called the Cockroach Janata Party, which is a parody on the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. It's a wordplay. And then what is promoted is the Cockroach Janata Party. So to read the self in such a minimal manner would actually not be doing any justice to this debate or the topic whatsoever. It then became the fastest growing political party with 26.4 million followers at a pace which left the government so worried that they actually took down that post immediately. Of course, these were cockroaches. They bounced back with yet another Insta handle. And the outdated modes of the government didn't work. Cockroaches are called ultimate survivors because they are evolutionary masterpieces, possessing specialized biological traits and resilient behaviors. They have survived 5 mass extinctions. What began as a protest against a broken education system turned into a movement that galvanized motivated, and sustained the resistance through memes, reels online, while offline, 3 young comrades sat on a 23-day hunger strike, and many suffered. A brutal lathi charge, molestation, and pellet guns were used for the first time in independent India in the capital city on unarmed protesters. How do we know this? We know this because the protesters put this out, not for self-promotion as vanity, but for the survival of Indian democracy, for the survival of the youth, the movement and the promotion. The self metamorphoses into society and then works to promote that on social media, and that is how you and I know what happened there. They reminded that the government that they will be called to account and will have to listen and respond. They reminded us that citizenship must be practiced. They showed us the juggernaut was not invincible. To quote a French philosopher, the only cure for vanity is laughter, and the only fault that is laughable is vanity. And that is how they mocked and jeered and ridiculed and brought a glimpse of accountable and democracy back in our midst. If on our side we have offended anybody, as we have said things which may not be to the liking, in the season of apologies, we forgive all of you for being offended.
Thank you, Vrinda. Brilliant closing speech from the proposition, apologies not needed. We have the last speaker to speak for the opposition, a speaker who is a distinguished essayist, filmmaker, critic, newspaper columnist, and amongst other things, he had a compilation of erotic Indian works which he will not be reading this evening. Right? So this gentleman continues to write columns which attracts all our attentions. His point of view is absolutely uncompromising, and I still remember probably his documentary work on the planet Kolkata, which completely broke through the very stale, stagnant lens and idioms through which Kolkata was seen for many, many years. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Ruchir Joshi to the podium.
Oh boy, I've got myself into trouble again. It feels like coming on to bat after the match is already won, but they've sort of said, okay, theek hai, you haven't had a go on the innings, so the opposition has been completely buried, but tum bhi aake thodi batting dikha do. After, the Masters have won it for us, and these guys are like completely exhausted in the field, ke tere ko bhi batting karni hai, theek hai. Aaja chal, we'll bowl you some full tosses. Because, it's really nice of Vrinda, one of the most powerful, amazing lawyers in this country, to actually give our closing arguments for us. I can't top that, okay? And in fact, all 4 of these great people have been kind of, how can I say it? Not cockroaches exactly or termites, but moles is the word I'm looking for. That they've been our moles on this topic. We needn't have bothered, really, because, I don't know. Here we are, but let me give it a shot anyway. So in this digital age, self-promotion is no longer an act of vanity, semicolon, as Vrinda has pointed out. It is a matter of survival. Okay, I was going to start with a story of, just to define the business of self-promotion. The politicians have always put their faces on coins, as we know, and on posters, on hoardings, billboards. There's that famous Kitchener General, you know, the Uncle Sam wants you in the First World War recruiting poster, where he's not self-promoting, he's trying to make the person come and join the army, so on and so forth. Then comes the propaganda films that start with the cinema. Hitler is a great example. Everything is named after him. Stalin gets a stadium named after him. So it's not the first time we've seen someone like Gaddafi naming a stadium. It's not the first time some politician names a stadium after himself when he's in power, you know. It has happened before. And a face is plastered everywhere. In the emergency, we saw Indira Gandhi's face plastered everywhere. But it's a matter of degree that startles me, because I remember before the digital age fully kicked off, this is probably in about 2006, 2007, I visited the capital of a state that I like to go to from time to time. And it was run by a chief minister who was, you know, they were very fond of themselves. I shall not name them or their gender. And their face was everywhere, all over the hoardings and everywhere. But I went to the pan shop to get a lighter or something. And along with the pan ka gutkas and the shampoo packets that were hanging there for the poorer people, etc., was a string of prophylactics, of condoms, hanging there. And I couldn't believe my eyes, because I had looked. The chief minister's visage was on the condoms. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, they really want to be there with you, for you, always, at your most intimate moment. They want you to remember them, even as you're avoiding procreating or, you know, thinking. It's an act of love. I went back and I wrote about this in a newspaper in Delhi, which is where I lived at the time. You know, and as a Gujarati in Delhi, who often likes to go back to his home state or come to Bengal, which is my home state also, it was just startling to be in a city at that time in Delhi where the chief minister's face was not very evident and the condoms were free of all untoward imagery. But my point being that today when we see, you know, when Mamata Banerjee was here, we saw her face all over the city, and now we're seeing other people's faces all over the city. Down south, we've seen the chief minister or whoever the leaders and stuff. That is self-promotion, because it is not necessary for a health program or an agricultural program or an environmental program to have the faces of the people who are doing it attached to it. You need the message. This has been done by the government. This is what we need to be doing. This is a new thing that's been launched. We don't need the faces. The faces are there purely as Vigyapan, and that is self-promotion. Okay? Self-promotion is different from someone like Neha Bora coming out and speaking directly to camera. She's not promoting herself, right? This point has been made again and again and again by all sides. Okay? Self-promotion is not is connected, deeply connected to vanity, and nothing these spectacularly intelligent people on the other side have said have disconnected vanity and self-promotion. What we are doing is we're saying, well, actually, what they're saying is, you know, self-promotion is not self-promotion really. There's bad self-promotion, which is connected to vanity, and then there is this other thing which we can also, for argument's sake, call self-promotion. No, it's not. It is, if you're arguing for a cause, if you're arguing for a belief, if you're an actor presenting something that you've done, or as a writer, if I am talking about a book that I've written, I'm trying to push the book. I'm trying to push the play I'm acting in. I'm trying to push the film I've acted in. I'm trying to push the new album I've made, right? Whereas when you're pushing an empty thing, a bit like a condom, which is like, look at me, I'm pushing myself. There's nothing inside. All that is a wrapping outside. That is self-promotion, right? On a more serious note, whatever's been happening at Jantar Mantar and at CJP, etc., it's interesting to note, aside from the argument, what I find very interesting is that the selfie video is something that has come to be with us for a long time. So I remember a selfie video from the riots that were set off in Northeast Delhi around the CAA protests. And there was this young guy who was part of a Hindutva mob, and he had this thing on a selfie stick, and he was running towards a basti to burn it, presumably, I think it was a Muslim basti, and he was running towards that. And he was saying ki, in Musalmano ko ye karo, wo karo, etc., etc. And at the same time, Ma Behan ki galiyan, and at the same time, Jai Shri Ram, all in the same breath, right? Now, and he had to film himself while doing this. So I wasn't surprised at what he was saying or what he was doing. What was fascinating to me was it was the same act. The act would not have been an act of burning and pillaging and killing without the camera there. For him, the camera was as important as the lathi or the sword in his hand, right? So that is that side of the coin. This side of the coin, when we see these youngsters dancing, performing for the camera in front of the cops, ki, aao mujhe danda maro, this, that. Of course they're performing. Of course they're saying, ain't I cute? Look at me, I'm sexy, I'm clever, I'm witty. But at the same time, they're not just promoting themselves. They're promoting an idea. They're promoting, they're giving you a different insight into a situation. They're creating a skit around there. I'm a documentary filmmaker. They broke every single tenet of straight documentary filmmaking, news gathering as well. You know, in terms of the camera work, in terms of the editing, in terms of what they're stitching together, all of this, right? And that is something which is completely different from what we can define as self-promotion. That may have been, in fact, in a weird way, a certain kind of, you know, without thinking about it, and a movement towards a certain kind of survival, that we will not be trampled under by this evil and corrupt system. We will survive and we will thrive, right? When we speak of survival, Riddhi quite clearly said that how many people have, you know, not everybody has phones in this country, not everybody has smartphones. Survival, when you talk about survival, when you talk about the people protesting at the river, or the farmers committing suicide, or all the many, the refugees, all kinds of people in absolutely dire situations, survival is Gaza, right? That is survival, okay? That, when we're looking in this country, is in the worst state it has been for a very long time. And we've always been in a bad state and poor in many ways, but the survival state is even worse now. So for those people, I don't think really self-promotion or vanity come into the picture. If they make a video somehow people manage to create some imagery, put something out of themselves, then that's an act of bravery and courage and luck. Because otherwise, when we look and sit and talk about survival and vanity and self-promotion, those things can be shifting signifiers in today's world. And we can laugh at it in the social media world, because in the social media world, all these people make their videos. At the same time, we can see in every tourist spot, in every city spot, there are girls and boys posing and doing, and it's a kind of self-promotion for within themselves. It's a kind of vanity project with a selfie camera. This thing has changed our lives in so many different ways. And it comes out of the jungle and the grid of all those selfie videos, we suddenly start seeing something political, poetic, brave and courageous, gathering and coalescing. And for that, I think we should be grateful. I think self-promotion and vanity are on the other side, and survival and wit and laughter and dance are currently on the winning side. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruchir. Very well spoken. I think, you know, self-promotion through condoms was a great idea. Was absolutely great idea till, you know, it was kind of interrupted with the onset of in vitro fertilization, IVF. And with the onset, you know, it was a great concept, completely upset by the gynecologists. And because nowadays you have husbands and wives meeting over Facebooks and biological material traveling in refrigerated thermoflasks. So you see certain, and the sales of certain plastic-coated devices are desperately down. So science has its upsides and downsides as well. So from the natural act of intellectual fertilization to the act of debating contraception, we now have a time whereby all of you will be given 2 minutes, and that includes your walking time to the podium. So please put your skates on. We want to avoid injuries, and on that note, your time starts now. Ankita, go.
Oh dear, this is really under the pump now. Well, I think our friends on the other side have really desperately tried to narrow the definition of self-promotion down as much as possible. By the way, I warned you against this right at the onset, that they were going to do this. They were going to they were going to describe self-promotion as what the influencer does, as what the crass politician does, as, what the political worker does when he's committing the most heinous of crimes. And we say no. They've said self-promotion corrupts society, in effect. I would say invisibility corrupts democracy. Ideas that can't be found cannot compete. And so the content that you're putting out there, the ideas that you're putting out there, that is the essential part of you. And how can that not, in a sense, be the promotion of your ideas and your basic self? Activists who can't be discovered can't be organized. Journalists who can't build trust, who can't get you to trust them, the person, cannot hold power to account. The question really is not whether self-promotion is ideal. The question is whether silence is a viable strategy in today's algorithmic world. We've heard a lot about gatekeepers, the few tech companies that control all the digital power these days. But at the end of the day, a 20-year-old with a mobile phone still managed to reach millions and millions of people in a matter of 4 days. Flawed access still beats no access at all. The Cockroach Janata Party has come up more times than we can count, I think. They've argued that they succeeded because of the cause, not because of self-promotion. If that were true, India would have seen many other successful youth movements over the last decade. We haven't. What was different this time? This was a new kind of communication that was brought forward because people turned the camera on themselves.
Thanks, Ankita. Do not exceed your time, because otherwise you'll be fined on the UPI, and that comes with a surcharge these days. Right? Okay. Mudar, please. Yeah. 2 minutes. You've rested for a long time, Mudar. Oh, okay. Right. No, you have a summation after this. So don't, I think, Mudar, if you... Okay, fair enough. Please, Nilanjana, do it.
Just a quick opening note. I think they've kind of conceded on self-promotion, but they don't want you to know. It's become, the definition of this has been changing from Ankita to Vrinda. But basically, I would say that what the students were doing counted as something like an act of love, an act of revolution, an act that was community-centered, not self-centered at all. I want to tell you about what happens after the protests. What happens is that these 4 men come along, usually 3 or 4 of them, and they paint over the slogans. So after everyone, CA, NRC, the farmers' protests, the workers' protests that are so little reported on, the Adivasi protests, the word that usually goes is Azadi. And you see it, slowly fading out, like a dim promise of what there was to come, and like a reminder of what survival actually is, what we are fighting for in all of these things. You want the survival of so much. You want the survival of your future, of hope, of the country. I come from Delhi, where I laugh, at people who say that self-promotion is a matter of survival, because, for us, every winter survival is, can you actually breathe, The air is toxic, as everybody knows. The earth has become toxic. The water has become toxic. Politics has become toxic. One of the things that we are fighting for in terms of survival is protection from pollution in all of these forms. For politics, that would be protection against vaingloriousness and, of course, of corruption. For the earth, how many people are out there fighting as hard as they can. To treat the CJP protest, I've been wanting to say this for a while, it's just one protest, is incorrect. People have not stopped protesting in this country for the last 10 years. It's just that some protests catch the digital moment and launch something else, of course, alongside that. But you have had everything from non-stop workers' protests ever since the new labour laws came in, to tribal and others. The last thing I want to leave you with is just an image of what happens when the rains come and that painting starts to fade in reverse. And again, you see Azadi, freedom. We, the people, that's the one thing that everybody is fighting for. That is survival. Thank you.
Thank you. Ramanjit.
Hey, look here. This is me. Is it self-promotion? Yes. How can you separate me from my history, my background, my thoughts, my ideas, the causes that I stand for, my work, my creation? And when I talk about it, is it self-promotion? Yes, it is. The opponent team, each one of them has talked about it. Mudar Patherya talked about scarcity, scarcity after visibility. He talked about superstars that Vrinda talked about, Vrinda referred to later. Ruchir, Joshi, Akash, they talked about how much self-promotion. They talked about what kind of self-promotion, what kind of content, and how much self-promotion. But they are still talking about self-promotion. And I want to say, how can you separate me from all of, I'm the sum total of all of it, and you can't separate me from all of it. This is my space, this is my voice, this is my story, and this is me.
Thanks, Ramanjit. Mudar.
I'm going to actually read the words. In this digital age, self-promotion is no longer an act of vanity, it is a matter of survival. ये बहुत ही important मुद्दा है, and I think most people, especially on the opposite side, have actually restricted the argument only to politics. जैसे कि ऐसे लगता है कि 3 महीने के पहले ये problem था ही नहीं. This is a fundamental मुद्दा which doesn't affect people in Delhi only, it affects everyone sitting in this room. And the fundamental question is, मैं कौन हूँ? क्योंकि आप जो हैं multiplied by 2000, वो आपकी इमेज सोशल मीडिया पे आती है. वहां आता है कि आप अपने वाइफ की एनिवर्सरी या उनकी शादी है या उनकी बर्थडे है, आप उनको आई लव यू फेसबुक पे बोलते हो. आप जिंदगी में तो बोल नहीं पाते और आप फेसबुक का आप माध्यम यूज करते हो. बच्चों को आप अगर बोलना चाहते हो कि क्लास 5 में वो 3rd आया अपने क्लास में, बच्चे को बोल नहीं सकते हो कि वेल डन या नॉट वेल डन, वो आप एक्चुअली फेसबुक पे बोलते हो क्योंकि 5000 लोग, फिर उसमें जो कमेंट्स आती है, इस दुनिया को कोई काम ही बचा नहीं है, यही बचा है. और आपको ऐसे लगता है कि मैटर ऑफ सर्वाइवल, आई एग्री इट्स अ मैटर ऑफ सर्वाइवल, बट आई बिलीव द मैटर ऑफ सर्वाइवल इज नॉट दैट इफ वी डू नॉट पोस्ट वी विल नॉट बी नोन, बट आई एम सेइंग दैट इफ यू कंटिन्यू टू ओवर पोस्ट द वे यू आर, you will not survive.
Mudar, I thought you were a good man. You know, people were kind of in intellectual turbulence anyway. Now he has opened up problems in the home front after the debate. Right. Yeah. You had your revenge, Riddhi.
I'm a bit scared now because, and I'm also happy that finally Mudarda had set the tone for what we know debates are screaming. So when he had no logic left, he was suddenly screaming right now. And it reminded us of the nation wants to know kind of a screaming. So thank you, Mudarda, for reminding us the tone. The debate is set now. So there is only 2 things I want to respond to. One is Akash said and Mudarda also said that about this is getting too political. But sadly, I think what they're trying to refer is that there's a version of politics which we think at times that politics, the word is only constricted to parties. But we are not talking about political parties here. Everybody's life is affected by politics. So of course we have to draw political references because everything which is personal is political. So yes, a debate has to be political. So that is one thing I wanted to respond to. And 2 things is that what the topic is vanity and survival. So when I just want to remind all of you one thing, that is survival is something which we are taking very lightly at this point of time, which Mr. Ruchir Joshi correctly reminded us, that when we are talking about survival, so many news of Gaza, so much death news, and in our country, Manipur and Kashmir have been completely blanked out. The internet has been cut out. The only news we have been receiving about what has been happening, the atrocities, was through the internet, and that is survival. It's not any longer about self-promotion or vanity or anything. It is about life and death. And if social media did not exist, we couldn't have possibly known what are the real figures of people who are dying in this damn country or outside. A genocide is being committed when everybody is trying to blind that out. So that is what we are talking about when it comes to survival. Thank you.
Riddhi, thank you. Before we have Akash, let us remember the movement that is happening in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. That is also not a political party. That is an activism platform by the name of JAC. So something is coming out in spite of the social media embargo. Akash, please.
Moderator sir, you had warned us that this situation would arise, and it is arisen. It's going to be 120 minutes, and we still haven't understood the debate. So just to put it quickly, Ramanjit said, hey, look at me, this is me. How can you separate me from my work, my background, my life story? Absolutely right. But when I say, hey, look at me, I'm on a condom, that is exactly when you're separating your life work and you are doing brazen self-promotion, and that is what we were trying to debate and discuss. Is this self-promotion is something that goes beyond your belief, beyond your work, beyond what you are talking, and mindlessly putting yourself out there. Riddhi has a brilliant point. Survival of Middle East, or whether be it Kashmir or Manipur, if that information is coming through us through the digital means, is somebody doing self-promotion, or is it digital technology allowing for the democratization of information? That is not the purview of this debate, and that is why I said the debate had to be defined better. Just a quick word on Vrinda talking about the gender aspect here. I happily want to inform this house is that at least in the digital space, the gender aspect doesn't come here. I was blamed that I looked at my phone. I'm sorry, looked at the phone again. Turns out the biggest social media content creators on Instagram, according to rank, Virat, male, Priyanka Chopra, Shraddha Kapoor, Deepika Padukone, and Alia Bhatt. And in content creators, Bhuvan Bam and Kusha and Komal, which is a 50-50. So digital technology is empowering. It is giving us information. But when we are talking about self-promotion, that is the problem, that our belief is not being discussed upon. Mindless self-promotion is what we were debating and discussing. That hasn't been proven by the other side.
Careful, Akash. Vrinda has been raring to have a go with you. Vrinda, please. Put your helmet on. Thanks.
Okay, so we have tried to teach them the English language and philosophy. I'm not sure we are succeeding with that crowd. I'm sure we are succeeding with all of you here. They will constantly adjectivize self-promotion. The word mindless has been used mindlessly number of times by this side. The topic does not have the word mindless, although most of them have looked at it and read it out to all of us. Actually, you can read it to yourself. The self includes my ideas, my politics, my conduct. That is the self. The self is not just the physical face. That is what they're trying to reduce it to, but it's not working. Bad news for Nilanjana, who told us, oh, there are these very nasty, ugly, big corporate houses, and yes, they are. Meta, Alphabet, Google, all of them, X. The bad news is that the corporate world offline is controlled by two people who are our fellow countrymen. So you're not getting away from corporates either offline or online. The examples given are all of those who have chosen reticence post-glory. We are talking of ordinary people. Everybody is not going to become a superhero. Yes, when the walls are painted over the slogans, we will not see them for a few days. But what has been captured and is available online through reels, through memes, through posts, across platforms, is available. And if I were to make a confession here, those of us who have lived through these times in the last month in Delhi. We almost are real addicts, and we can't sleep without seeing some of our favorite slogans and songs. They are addictive because they enthuse us. And that is what the self-promotion has done. It has resuscitated democracy and given us hope and survival. Thank you. The revolution will be digitized.
Ruchir, fire away.
Nice try. Doesn't work. Sorry. I mean, come on. Okay. I'm now going to discuss semantics with possibly the best lawyer in the country. What fun. Great. Okay. Listen, can I say this act of vainglorious vanity, is that not superfluous? Or will vanity do by itself? If I have to define vanity by other words and then say it's not really vanity, vanity means vainglorious, but it also can be positive. Self-promotion traditionally has been used across the English language in the last 100 years in a very specific way. A self-promoter, a self-promotion person is someone who is pushing themselves forward. And it has always been connected to vanity. Now, to try and change the definition of self-promotion and include all the other things that we have pointed out that needed to be included, and that could not be included, is a sleight of hand that's, they've been trying constantly, it's not working. If it walks like self-promotion, if it talks like self-promotion, if it quacks like self-promotion, it is self-promotion, right? And we know what is self-promotion and what is not. So who am I? What is my work? Can I talk about a poem I've written? Can I talk about a book I've written? Can I talk about a political idea I have? That is not self-promotion. That is promoting my work or a work which I'm part of as a collective, right? If I'm promoting just myself, which a lot of these content creators are, let's not just stick to politics, okay? A lot of these younger people, older people, they are promoting themselves, what they wear, what they're drinking on holiday, and their new bikini bodies, or their old bikini bodies, or how they're really looking ripped after Tai Chi for men, chair Tai Chi. That's all self-promotion. That is a kind of ego-stroking, kind of visual masturbation. Ki main kitna acha lagta hu, main kitni achhi lagti hu. That is self-promotion. Okay? I'll stop there.
Ruchir, thank you. Yeah. I think intellectual masturbation is a nice point to take a halt on. And as the evening rolls on, you've been a fantastic audience. So as these people get ready for their last 2 minutes, we are feeling very generous, and we will ask for a minute each of your audience interaction. Do we have a microphone in the auditorium? And somebody very agile and athletic? Please put your hand up. We need we'll take 2 audience interaction, and then both the teams get ready for your last 2 minutes of bullet point summing up. Do we have a audience interaction yet? I can't see the hall from here. Can you identify anybody who's...
Yeah, hello. Sorry, oops. Ouch.
Yes.
That's too loud. I'm so sorry. I'm Indrava. Good evening.
Sir, please start. 1 minute.
I was a bit confused on the topic. Were we debating CJP and BJP's vanity and survival? Or whether self-promotion is vanity or survival in the digital era? So I have just 2 quick statements which end in a question mark. I don't expect an answer for it, though I might sound biased because most of the audience here are from boomers and Gen X. I ask you all, do you need self-promotion to survive? My second question is, self-promotion is to stay relevant. Is trying to stay relevant an act of vanity or an individual's fight for survival? Thank you.
So you have brought us to the starting point of the debate, and a debate is never successful until and unless it has generated adequate confusion. So the last comment from the audience, please. It was happening from the times of Gladstone and Disraeli. Do not think. One more comment, an audience interaction. The opposition will sum first, so we will please get ready for your last 2 minutes.
Sorry, while I was listening to the speakers, I quickly scrolled through and I found that everybody against the motion is all on every digital platform possible. So I don't know whether they would like to answer to whether it is a matter of survival for them or
Ma'am,
is it
this
a
is
matter...
India, and long time before Winston Churchill defined debating as a supreme act of intellectual dishonesty. And that principle still holds. So please do not open any more personal Pandora's box. We can't take it this evening. I'm so happy you limited it to the social media handles. Please do not probe any further. Ladies and gentlemen, the debate comes to its last minutes of conclusion. Please, who is summing up for the Akashes? Akash, fire away. Clear the confusion. 2 minutes, bullet points on which the audience will vote.
You're asking me after 120 minutes in 2 minutes. If the proposition is not willing to understand some basic premises, let me just put 3 as the closing argument. And again, going by the rules, when you sum up a debate, you throw a challenge. And the challenge I'm throwing to the audience, in your informed opinion also, and in their, and may they, since they have the last word now, can they prove failed this in this digital age? I'm coming back again with the comma and the apostrophe. I'm coming back to the definition. In this digital age, simple question. Before the digital age, were human beings different? And after the digital age, have human beings become different in terms of self-promotion? That difference wasn't brought forward. I would hope that maybe in the sum up, they bring to the fact that what has changed in the digital age, we believe that the amount of talking about your work and putting your work out there was there before. The vanity was there before. It just has changed into the digital platform. They have failed to prove this whole self-promotion business. I'm happy that at least we are now defining. Because till the third, fourth speaker, the definition tha hi nahi. Now the definition has come into play. Good, now we are discussing the definition. Our definition continues to be that self-promotion is self-aggrandizement, it is egoistic, is not putting your good work out there. It's different. Now, it is up to the House, it is up to them to prove to us that no, it is all good. Self-promotion is all about just putting yourself good work out there. We believe that there is a narcissistic element when you say self-promotion, and there is a lot of it in social media. So had the topic been, has vanity increased in the day of in digital? I would have said, yes, it has. But what we are discussing is, it is no longer an act of vanity, it is a matter of survival. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the question is, has digital age or digital technology changed the very essence of vanity, of self-promotion, and survival? Thank you.
Thank you, Akash. Riddhi.
It's a simple closing. They have been only talking about the idea whether self-promotion existed before social media. Yes, it did. It exists now. But what about now? The question is survival. The question is not about whether self-promotion existed before, but the question is now, it's really impossible, because how all the corporate conglomerates and politics have been integrated into social media and how the options have been narrowed down. And again, as I quoted and also Vrinda ma'am said, that we are talking about ordinary citizens. We are not talking about handful of examples of people who has the privilege to actually, debate about what self-promotion or not self-promotion, but they, even before debating or thinking, they need to survive. And the population is huge. So when the question of survival comes in, there is no space or privilege like us to even discuss whether self-promotion existed or not. We know what is self-promotion, but the people we are trying to talk about, do they know what is self-promotion and what is not self-promotion? They need to feed their families, and thus the survival comes. So at this point of time, there is no other option but survival, no matter how you survive. Of course, the question of ethics and morality remains. But now, in today's time and age, the people who doesn't have privilege we are talking about, their hands are cuffed. So they need to survive in one way or the other. So out of the whole thing, the word which remains is survival, and social media has come and democratized the whole space for people to come out with their opinions and to survive, even when the government or any form of power is constantly telling you to not survive and tells you that you mean nothing, but you have a voice. You can still go out. I still follow Deshbhakt, and I get to know so much. If he did not exist on the digital platform, I wouldn't have had a lot of news and a lot of access to what he's putting out. So it is a question of survival. He's also surviving, I think. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Riddhi. What an interesting evening. And like all good things, we have come to the conclusion and the most critical part of the debate. Time changes, technology evolves. Gautam Buddha had to travel for all of 1,200 kilometers over 37 years to create a motley group of followers. And Dipke hit the Instagram button and got a few million over a matter of few days. Perhaps the technology changed, the purpose remained the same. You have heard the motion of the debate, you've been absolutely glued onto it, and like the Wimbledon tennis match, our inclinations and biases kept on sort of pendulating with each speaker, and if that is not a successful debate, what is? Now, all of you, wonderful, wonderful, attentive audience of Tollygunge Club, those of you who have sided, and those of you who have agreed with Ruchir, Akash, Nilanjana, Mudar, the team opposition, please put your hands up. Can somebody with good acuity of vision do a quick counting? No, we have not had an SIR, so I think the... You have an idea, Vishnupriya, have you? Sorry? You need your glasses, Ruchir. No, somebody needs to give me a verdict, otherwise I'll be beaten up, you see. I can't give out unauthentic... Thank you. So now let's have an idea. So those of you who have agreed with Riddhi, Vrinda, Ankita, Ramanjit, for the motion, put your hands up. Two hands. You are a true Bengali, please. No. Do we have a count? Vishnupriya, do we have a count? Sorry? Pardon? For the motion. So, wait a minute. Do not get excited till I leave the hall. Right? So, on complete responsibility of Vishnupriya, we claim it's been a fantastic debate and the motion has been carried. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this evening has indeed been such an enjoyable experience, listening to a variety of viewpoints coming from our esteemed resource persons, dealing with the topic from different perspectives. The arguments placed by the members for and against the motion were strong and relevant and made us think. Moderator Dr. Kunal Sarkar, as always, has done a fine job of steering the debate, where he blended humor with logic. Tollygunge Club conveys their heartfelt thanks to all the participating debaters who have made interesting and meaningful contributions dealing with the topic. Our sincere thanks to Dr. Kunal Sarkar for his excellent moderation. We thank President of Tollygunge Club, Mr. Sangeet Bagrodia, for his support and encouragement, Brigadier Ganapati for being with us all along, to Mr. Shoibal Bose, Shudeep Dhara, Shukunna Nag, and Shapon Shantra for operations, to librarians Pronom and Shuparna for their assistance. Thanks goes out to the convener and members of the library committee for organizing the same, and of course to our audience, whose involvement and observations made the proceedings so interesting. Good evening and thank you. Thanks to Azaz Ahmed and Pradeep Patro for IT, to Gautam Singh and Shudip Bose for the food and beverages. Thank you.